Now we are coming to loops. We've learned about the conditional statement. We've learned about the if-else statement. We've learned about the if-else, if, and else. I've also learned about the switch statement. Now we are coming into loops. Now, before we go into the course fully, what are loops? Loops can be like a circular path or a drawn out path that repeats itself over time. We have a fan, a ceiling fan rolls in a loop. It goes from one end to another end. That is what we call a loop. So in PHP also, let's say we have a loop. What happens when we want the same line of code to run over again for a certain number of times? Now, if you want a certain code to run, maybe you want to write a test or you want to run a test for a number of students and you want to see how many students passed and you want that to display it 10 times, you can check for a loop or check for a condition. Now, there are four types of loops basically in PHP. We have the while loop. The while loop loops through a block of code as long as the specified condition is true. We have the do while loop. The do while loops through a block of code once, then repeats the loops as long as the specified condition is true. The for loop loops through a block of code a specified number of times. And we have the for each loop, which loops through a block of code for elements in an array. For each loop is usually used for an array, while the other ones can be used interchangeably. Now let's proceed. We have the while loop. The while loop loops through a block of code as long as the specified condition is true. So it goes like this. We have while the condition is true, it should execute this code. So now we have an example that says x is equals to 1 and while x is less than or equal to 5, for as long as it runs for x less than or equal to 5, that is, it's going to run from as long as x is 5 till 1. Then it should echo out the number is x and break. And x plus plus is an increment that says keep adding 1, keep looping and adding 1, keep looping and adding 1. That is, loop the first time, add 1, loop the second time, add 1 to the value of x, loop the third time, add 1 to the value of x again. And we'll see that in real code. Alright, so we have it in our text editor here. We have the value of x is equals to 1 and we have our while loop here that says while variable x is less than or equal to 5, we should echo out the value is x and we should have an increment x plus plus. So let's go to our browser and run that and see how that is going to give us. So we have the while loop statement. We have the value is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. That is, for the first time it's going to check. We are going to check for the first time while it is 1, output it out. The value of 1 is correct and we are going to less than or equal to 5. So it's going to add plus 1 again and check through the loop again as long as whatever it's checking for is not greater than 5. So it's going to check. If we go ahead and change this to say 5 itself, and let's see what happens in the loop. We go to the button and reload it. You see it only works once because it's only one instance that for x is equals to 5. It's only in one instance that x can be equal to and less than 5 again. If we make this 6, we'll see that we'll have 5 and 6 because it can come out twice. So that is how the while loop works. Example again, another example we have here is for the while loop is, let's see what happens when we increment the number by 10. So if you go back to our text editor, I will say for x equals to 0, I will say while x is less than or equal to 100, you should do what? You should echo out the value is x and we have a break and x plus is equal to 10, right? And we have it this way. Now what is this going to say? It's going to tell us that x is 0, but while x is less than or equal to 100, it should echo out the value of x. But before it does that, it should add 10 to the value before it echoes it out. Now let's go to the browser and see what that looks like. We have the value. Okay, sorry, I think the very declaration was not accepting that. Now this is another difference between single brace and single quote and double quote. We see that when we added the single quote, it didn't recognize it as a variable, it recognizes it as a string. So let's take note of that whenever we want to display a variable within an echo function without concatenation, we should always ensure that we are using double quotes. So let's go back and reload. We have 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 and 100, showing us how it has come to play. So that is all about while loop. Take your time, study it. We can add so many values. While x is equals to 15, we can ask it to do this also and go back and re-echo it and see what it's going to be. 15, 25, 35, 95, and so many things can be done with the while loop, which we'll do further in the course. All right. Now we are in the do while loop. We talked about the while loop earlier on, while we said it executes while a condition is true. But for the do while loop, the do while loop will always execute the block of code once. It will then check the condition and repeat the loop while the specified condition is true. Now what the do while loop used to be different from the while loop is that for the do while loop, it always runs once before checking for the condition. It's like a messenger you send to deliver something, and it goes without even asking you what you're asking for. So it goes first, then it comes back and say, okay, what do you want me to do before you do that? So we can go ahead and see what it looks like in the text editor. Okay, so now we have the do while loop, and this is how it looks like. So we have a condition saying x is equals to 1, and we say should echo out the number. The number is the value of x, and increment the number by 1 before going to check while the number is less than or equal to a certain amount of number. So we go and see how that looks like in the browser. Let's reload the do while loop. We see it first display the number is 1 before it go ahead and now check to see the other condition. It might look insignificant first, but at the end of the day, when you're running a bigger code, you would see the difference between the do while loop and the while loop. So whenever you want to test a condition and you want a temporal condition, maybe you want to first set a defined value for, let's say you are getting an entry data from the user, but you don't know what data the user is going to send. So the first thing you can do is you can use a do while loop to first allow the user to enter to access for the script or the program to first accept a default value before checking to see whether or not the user has inputted the value. So that's just how the do while loop works, and we'll be going to the other loops soon.